Good morning, and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. Our Redeemer Sanctuary is shaped a little unusually. If you have worshiped here, our sanctuary is laid out such that our focal point is one of the corners of the building. Hanging on the wall there is the representation of the risen Christ, and in front of that is our communion rail which surrounds our altar. This pattern causes a bit of a problem for those of us up front leading worship. You see, out in the pews, you are naturally facing the focal point. But where I sit up front, I'm on a diagonal wall that actually has me mostly facing the people gathered for worship. A few days ago, I was thinking about that I was thinking that because of this arrangement, something happens up front that I'll bet most of you have never noticed. When it is time to confess our faith together using one of our creeds, I will physically turn and face the altar. I don't turn to the figure of Jesus on the wall. No, the center of worship, the focus of our attention, is on the altar. There are a couple of kinds of altars that are meant to represent different things. A chest up against the wall points to the Ark of the Covenant, often considered the footstool of God's throne. And an altar that is pulled out from the wall and which can be gathered around is meant to represent a table and points to the family of God gathered for communion. The altar we have here at Redeemer is a bit of both. It's a large chest-like altar that is clearly a table as well. When those times in our worship come when we are speaking to God, or when something special like communion is happening, I turn and face the altar. That's where our focus should be. Today is Good Friday, the day we remember Christ's crucifixion and death, and today we are also finishing talking about the altar linens that we use each week and which point to Jesus. Today we will consider something called the fair linen. Before we get to the linen, however, we need to talk about altars and how they were used. Throughout the Old Testament, altars were used to make sacrifices. Maybe we also need to talk about that word sacrifices as well. You see, the idea is that you sacrifice something to demonstrate the depth and sincerity of your faith. For example, in Old Testament times, people would sacrifice a sheep or even a bull to show their devotion to God. In a time when food and access to food was much more difficult than it is for us today, sacrificing a large animal that you could use for food or to help plow fields was truly a sacrifice. Such a sacrifice says, "My faith is more important to me than this." Here at Redeemer, we have a very large altar. I measured recently, and it is 12 feet long. So sometimes when I look at our large altar, the image of Jesus as a sacrifice on the altar, on our behalf, comes to mind. The fair linen is the large cloth that covers the surface of the altar and hangs down a little on each end. It is called fair because the finest linen is supposed to be used. And like the corporal, the fair linen has traditionally been interpreted as a reminder of the burial cloth in which Jesus Christ's body was wrapped after the crucifixion. Since it is the Lord's table, the fair linen is kept clean, unwrinkled, and fresh, and never has creases. When it is stored after ironing, it is rolled instead of folded. That's the other thing about standing where I stand up front. From there, I look down the entire length of that fair linen and remember Christ's sacrifice. The altar is always our focal point in worship. May Christ's sacrifice for us be the focal point of our lives. Thanks for watching, and remember to let this day belong to God.